Hi, I'm Chris. Welcome to my workspace. If you are here because you want to learn to carve stone, I congratulate you, I salute you. You have a world of fun and challenge in store for you. I'm going to do my best to present to you clear and followable information that will help you on your quest. There's a lot of things that make stone carving a really challenging craft to learn, and even just creating the conditions to learn, it has a lot of challenges around, like finding the stone, finding the tools, finding the environment where you can make a mess and make a lot of noise. So and then you've got the challenge of actually learning the skills. So if you've made it this far, I congratulate you and I'm excited for you. So as I said, I'll do my best to instruct you. I always like to start my lessons with this one. It's called a flat surface, and the great thing about shaping a flat surface is it focuses you in on the tools and the skills of accurately breaking stone. So there's no ambiguity or confusion about what stone you want to break. It's very clear what stone you want to break and what stone you don't want to break. As you advance and start to tackle more complicated projects, that line gets blurrier, and that just adds another layer of judgment and difficulty. So if you're a complete beginner, this is a great exercise just to learn how to control the tools. It's like controlling a car. You don't want to do that out on the highway. You want to learn that in a parking lot. So the first thing we're going to do is mark a pencil line around our stone to indicate the boundary between what we don't want to break below the line and what we do want to get rid of that's above the line. The act of marking lines on stone is really important, and some people don't take enough time to reflect on that, because when you're marking lines on the stone, according to my way of working, your brain is in judgment mode. Your brain is in decision-making mode. Once you pick up the tools and you're just getting rid of the stone according to the lines you put on, then you're in execution mode. And I like to keep those two separate. It's not always possible, but whenever it is possible, I like to separate the two modes, because it's hard to break stone accurately, but to do so at the same time as you're making decisions about whether you want to break a certain bit of stone, that just makes things a little bit more difficult and slows you down. Not that speed is all that matters, but I like to work efficiently and speedily if possible. So this is a very simple concept, but what you learn here is going to be applicable even when you move on into more complicated projects. There is the possibility of messing up in your marking on of this line if you were trying to make a perfect geometric shape for stone masonry. If you were trying to mark this line on for stone masonry, which is like building stones, like geometric blocks for building a building, you'd want to make sure that your line on this side of the block is parallel to your line on that side of the block. And you do that by having a friend hold the straight edge on this side, and you hold your straight edge on this side, and you move them like this to try to get them to line up and be perfectly parallel. Since we're not using this block for any building a cathedral or anything like that, it doesn't matter that much. The only thing that really matters is that the lines meet at the corners and that they're straight. So the first tool I want to introduce you to is the pitch. And the pitch is a big hefty block of steel that's got, well, it's not symmetrical. You see, this side of the pitch is straight. The handle is just, this part is just an extension of the handle. But this side, the surface goes in towards the center axis of the tool. So the edge that's on the center axis, that's the edge you're going to place on the stone, like this. Not like this, but like this. So the key to using the pitch, it's also the key to using almost all of the tools I'm going to show you, and that's the angle that you hold it in relation to the stone. And this is something you only really get the feel of from practice. If I have my angle very, if my angle is very direct, the shock is going to go deep into the stone and I'm going to break a bigger chip. If my angle is less direct, like this, the angle the shock is going to not go as deep into the stone and I'll get a smaller chip. So I'm just going to angle it up a little bit. I'll continue on this side. Ready? Mm-hmm. Now pitching is great. I really love pitching. But I remember in the beginning, it was scary because that's one of these, pitching is one of these times when you're trying to give it as hard a blow as you can, which means you're most at risk of smashing your hand and really having some pain. There's no trick to that. There's no secret remedy for that except practice. Also, when you're pitching against a side that's like this, it's different from pitching against a side that's like sawn or nice and flat. Okay, so you'll get a different result when you pitch against a surface that's rough like this than you will against a surface that's smoother, like a sawn surface like this. It usually doesn't work quite as well. Alright, that's all you can do with the pitch. A lot of times I have a class and I don't say anything and I let people continue to try to pitch to try to get more nice big chips off, and they realize it for themselves. But I'll tell you, the pitch works well when you have it against sort of a wall like this, but when you have a sloping surface, it's very hard to pitch. It's very hard to get any results with the pitch. So what now? The next thing you have to use is the punch. The punch is just a rod of steel with a pyramid point at the end. Very simple tool. If you found it lying on the ground, you might not even think it is a tool. You might think it was like a spike from the railroad tracks or something. Oh, and this is important. You notice I didn't pitch right on my pencil line. I left a little bit of room above the pencil line. That's intentional. I don't recommend trying to pitch right on the pencil line because the pitch has a great big flat surface. It's not really like a sharpened edge like this tool. It's got a big blunt edge. So a lot of times if you're trying to put it right on the pencil line, it's hard to see the pencil line. So you might end up going too low, which would be bad. It's not the end of the world. If it happens to you, don't freak out. But we want to try to avoid it. So how does the punch work? I'll give you one thing about the angles. Remember I was talking about the angles with the pitch. It's the same way with the punch. If your angle is 90 degrees direct, you don't get nice chips. If your angle is too low, you don't get nice chips. The tool just kind of scratches the surface and you have to push it into the stone just to get any kind of engagement at all. The angle is the thing you're going to be experimenting with for the next hour or two as you work this project. The angle is critical. You shouldn't need to squeeze the tool hard at all for it to work. I'll hold it really, I'll dramatize that by just holding it between my fingers like lightly. I think the need to not squeeze the tool is the reason a lot of us hold the tool like this with the little finger behind, because if you're holding it like this and you're squeezing it tightly, you get some pain. That's a reminder not to hold it tightly. There's no need to, you can't tell this from watching me, but I'm not pushing the tool into the stone. I'm just positioning it there. I'm letting the hammer do the work. And I'm getting nice chips because I have a good angle. Now, the tools that I'm using, they're really stonemasonry tools. They're big tools. If you're into this for sculpture, unless you're wealthy, I don't really recommend that you buy such big tools because you might never use them again. After this project, if you continue to watch my videos, you'll probably see that I'm not using these tools at all anymore. I'm using smaller ones. They're the same, but they're smaller. So if you need to be on a budget, don't get such big tools. You still want to get it, you might not even want to get a pitch at all. So in addition to the angle that you hold your tools, another critical factor is the direction that you're working in, because you're driving the tool through the stone in a certain direction. Here's one direction, here's another direction, here's another direction. That's important because you'll be wanting to identify the areas where you're going to get the most results for your effort. If you can find a piece of a location to put your tool where the stone is undermined, if you look at it right here, you see that this stone is undermined because the pitching took stone away. So now this little bit of stone here is kind of hanging over the edge. If I put my tool in here and I hit in this direction, I'm going to dislodge a piece of stone with hardly any effort. If I put it here, see how this is undermined? I'll be able to get a nice big chip without much effort. Right? So this isn't just a brainless, like, brute force process. You're actually using your mind and you're beginning to recognize where the stone has vulnerability and exploiting that. Another thing I want to tell you about hammering in general is a healthy way to hammer. Because most of you, like me before I did stone carving, you never sat in a room and hammered non-stop for 3 hours. So what's the best way to hammer? The best way to hammer is down. The blow is going down. You see the way my body is working and the way my arm is working, the way my elbow. In terms of not damaging your joints, that's the best way to hammer. It's also the best way to get the most results for the least energy output. So you save your energy this way. Sometimes when I have a class and I'm working with newcomers, I see a lot of strange hammering styles that are not healthy and they don't get a lot of results. Sometimes I even see people hammering towards themselves, which is like you're putting all of this energy into your position and holding this heavy object like out in front of it's just a very bad posture, and you don't get as good results. Another bad posture is like to sort of swing your arm like a door, you know, and hammer like this. Sometimes I see people who are really tired and I see them hammering like this, and I have to come over and try to get them to switch to the down. Imagine you're the judge in the courtroom and you're just smashing that gavel down on the table saying, order in the court. That's the healthiest swing. And you get the most power. Okay, so you're wondering, what kind of stone is this? This is limestone. And I think limestone is a wonderful, wonderful stone for beginners. And I mean, I'm not a beginner, and I still love to use limestone. But it's especially good for beginners because it's inexpensive, it's soft, and you don't have to mess around with a lot of abrasives to finish the project. Because with limestone, the best surface, in my opinion, is with the tool marks left on. If you are working in an area where there's a source of granite or marble, it's understandable if you start your stone carving career using a harder material, because it's probably less expensive and easier to obtain. But you should be aware that those materials are a lot harder. I think you'll spend at least 2 or 3 times as long to do the same thing in marble, and probably 5 times as long to do the same thing in granite as in limestone. This is a pretty big surface for a beginner to do as a flat surface. You don't need to use such a big piece. Even if your piece is like 10 inches by 10 inches, that's fine. So at this stage, it's really easy for me to see that I have a lot of waste to get rid of. As I start to flatten things out, though, I'm going to begin to use a straight edge that will tell me if I'm how close I am to this imaginary surface that's defined by my pencil line. Okay, one of my favorite metaphors for how the tools work is to compare the project that we're doing to a journey or a trip through, from one place to another. A lot of times when we go on a long trip, we use multiple vehicles, and we'll use an airplane to go most of the miles that we have to go. We'll take a plane. The punch is like your airplane, because aside from the pitch, it breaks the biggest chips. This is like a punching chip. Now you compare that to a pitching chip and you say, well, that's not very big. But the pitch only takes you so far. Once you can't use the pitch anymore, this is a big chip. So you want to use this vehicle as long as possible, because the other tools, the claw and the flat chisel, they're like the bus, and they're like walking. So you're not going to, even if you're really tired of being on a plane, you're not going to choose to say land the plane earlier than necessary so you can switch to a slower vehicle. And it's the same with stone carving. You're not going to want to stop using the punch. Even if you're getting tired of it and you want to be finished with it, you stick with it as long as you can, because the next tools are slower. More on that later. Another reason I love limestone is because it doesn't have silica. And silica is the, I don't know, the mineral or the chemical or the component of the dust which is the most damaging to your lungs. So you might be wondering why I'm not protecting myself with a mask. And I'm not opposed to masks. I don't ever try to convince somebody not to wear a mask. But of all the stones you could be carving, limestone is the least harmful to your respiration. Remember, I talk about the direction. If you're trying to get rid of stuff that's close to the edge, it's dangerous to be hitting towards the edge because you might give it a blow and break a piece that goes below your pencil line. So that's the time that when it's a good idea to turn around and punch in towards the center. There's less risk of hurting your pencil line if you're punching in. But when you're working on the middle, it doesn't really matter. You can go any direction that works best for you. I know some of you are wondering, what's with that hammer? I never seen a hammer like that. It's kind of round, so it looks like a bell. I like that hammer, but you can just as easily use the more traditional, or more, I won't say traditional, because that's very traditional, but you could just as easily use a more common hammer design like this. Stone carving is a great tradition all over the world, and it's been practiced for thousands of years in many different, locations. So different civilizations and different nationalities have developed slightly different hammer styles, slightly different chisel styles. And if you're lucky enough to be able to learn from people from different traditions, then you can just try them all and see which one works best for you. And that also reminds me of something I really want to say, which is that the only real way I can teach is the way that I know and the way that I understand, but I'm not trying to imply that what I'm telling you is the only way to carve stone. There are lots of people who have learned, maybe they taught themselves, or maybe they've been taught by other kinds of teachers that showed them different ways of working. And for all I know, they might be a lot better than the way I'm showing you, but I can only teach you what I know. But I'm not saying it's the only way or that it's even the best way, because I could be wrong. If anybody out there knows a better way, drop a comment in the comment section and I'll be happy to add your video to my channel so that people can get a well-rounded understanding of different ways. So things are flattening out, but in the back of my mind I'm aware that I'm not right on the pencil line. So now would be a good time to take a nice sharp chisel and do another round of pitching, this time not with the special tool that I named the pitch, but with a tool that's more like a chisel. And I'm okay to use that now because I'm not breaking as much waste. Initially I was breaking about, an inch of waste. Now I'm only breaking about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch of waste. So it's not as hard on my chisel. And if I want, I can do it in two layers. two levels. So now I'm putting the tool right on the pencil line to the best of my ability. I'm putting it right in the middle of that pencil line and trying to break a chip off right on the line. So now my pencil line is almost like not even there anymore. But I have an edge that I can see, not only with my head down like this, but I can see it from where I'm chiseling up here. I can see that edge, and that's even better for me than a pencil line. It's a physical pencil line. It's not just color on the stone, it's actually a physical surface change. Now don't anybody think that there's anything wrong if it takes you guys a lot longer to do this than it takes me. That's to be expected because it's hard and I've had a ton of practice. So just like anything else in life, you don't just get better at something, you get faster at it when you've had practice. Even something as simple as placing the chisel on the pencil line, it took me a lot longer the first few times I did it, and as I got more practice, I got better and better at it. Okay, so now that I've done that, I can see I actually have like probably ½ an inch of stone to take away right there, and everywhere. But I'm going to start by coming in from the edges. Still punching, but I'm coming in from the edges because I'm getting ready to do a different process. I'm getting ready to bring some other tools into the act. I'm getting ready to bring the claw and the flat chisel. I'm getting ready to start using them to really finish a border all the way around the stone. Call it a draft. But it would be silly to do a draft when the edges are still like sloping up, because the draft is the claw and the flat chisel are tools for refining, according to my way of working. They're not really for heavy shaping. They're more for refining a shape that you've done with the punch. The punch is the tool that transforms the block of stone. The claw and the flat chisel are more for dressing and cleaning up and refining the shape that you've transformed it into. You might feel nervous to place your punch so close to the edge, thinking that like, oh my gosh, I might end up taking a chip downwards that spoils my edge. That's a reasonable thing to worry about. And the whole thing that determines whether the chip goes down or whether it goes forward is the angle. And if you end up messing up and breaking a piece down rather than across, don't feel bad, because that's the only way you're ever going to figure out what angle is good and what angle is bad. I want to make sure to emphasize that although with anything you do, you want to have a good product. You want the outcome to be what you set out to do, which is a perfect flat surface, so with nothing broken below the pencil line, but only the stuff above the pencil line. That's the goal, and if you commit to that, it's going to feel bad to make a mistake. But the real purpose of what you're doing is to learn. And sometimes you learn more by making mistakes than by being super uptight and cautious and not making any mistakes. Because you could do a perfect job by being really cautious and not really understand how much angle you could, what the boundary is between the right angle and the wrong angle. You know what I'm saying? So if you do make mistakes while you're doing this, try not to be too harsh and judge yourself. Just give yourself a pat on the back for having taken a risk and gone too far, and try not to do it again. So my goal, what I'm doing now, is to try to make my deepest punch marks right on that imaginary surface that I'm trying to create. And another thing about the angle, you can change your angle in the middle of a sequence of blows. You can start your sequence at a certain angle. A lot of times on the edge, you want to hit carefully so it doesn't go awry. But once you get a few blows into it, you can go more direct and really dislodge the oh, see, I goofed up. I went down. I didn't mean to. Once you get into the away from the edge a little, you can be a little bit more reckless. Oh, I didn't. I gotta fix this. Okay. Alright, so I'm almost all the way around with my punching. Now I'm going to switch to the claw. Okay, the claw. There's lots of different kinds of claws. There's wide claws with just a few teeth. There's wide claws with many teeth. There's wooden handled claws. There's metal handled claws with lots of teeth. I don't think anybody out there is going to go from never having carved stone before to like investing in a toolkit with 100 tools in them. So whatever you've got, use what you've got. The whole goal is to refine this border that I punched. Now I'm going to refine it with a claw in preparation for flat chiseling it. And here's an important point. When I use the punch around the edge, generally I come 90 degrees from, so this is my edge. Generally I go 90 degrees from my edge towards the center, like this. But I don't do that with the claw. With the claw I like to go from corner to corner, like this, okay? I don't go in away from myself, I go across my body. And since I'm right-handed and the blows are coming from the right side, I start at this corner and I go to that corner. When I get close to this corner, I'm going to stop, because this corner is very vulnerable to being broken off. And when I'm hitting it like this, I'm putting a force on it that's going to drive that off. So instead of doing that, I want to change my body position and put the claw here and work towards the center. Okay? I'm gonna do the same thing on this edge. I'll go from this corner to this corner, but when I get about here, I'll stop and come in. Now, one of the challenges of clawing and flat chiseling is to not drive your tool in, to not drive it in deeper and deeper with each blow. I'm going to go to the middle to dramatize that. If you put this claw on the surface of the stone and you give it a hit, fine, perfect. But if you don't change your angle or pick it up and move it in any way, and you continue to hit it, you're just going to drive it deeper and deeper and deeper. And you'll be constantly feeling, oh, I went too deep, and then like starting over again, oh, I went too deep. So the way to avoid that mistake is to give your claw or your flat chisel a very small repositioning between each blow. And that repositioning could be something as subtle as like a little wiggle, or as dramatic as actually picking it up and putting it back down. That's going to prevent it from driving in, like as if you were driving in a nail, with each blow deeper and deeper. You don't want that. Every time you want to start from the top of the crust and drive it down the same amount, and then move over to another place and put it at the top of the crust and drive it down. You don't want to be driving it down farther and farther. If you don't understand what I'm saying, you will once you try it. But the key to avoiding that is to reset between each blow. Reset. Now you see, this stone is pretty heavy. But if you're working with a smaller stone, it's very annoying to have to fight against the movement of the stone across the table. Okay, I'll just get this last edge. And as I said, I'm not using the claw to dig deeper. I'm just using it to refine the texture of my punching. If I find that I'm digging, I should probably back up and go back to the punch and do a little more punching. And I do that all the time. That's not a bad thing. In the end, it saves you time. Okay, the next process is flat chisel. And again, I have a variety of flat chisels. I have an all-metal flat chisel with a mallet head. I also have a wood-handled flat chisel, a little wider. Just for variety, I'll show you this one. And I like to use a nylon mallet or a wooden mallet to hit this one with. And I know you're thinking, why? What makes the nylon mallet such a good thing to hit that with, but not to do the other things you've been doing? And I really don't have a good answer for that. So like I said, if you have a limited budget, you don't need to buy multiple kinds of hammer. You might end up doing so if you really get into this. But just to get started, don't feel like you have to have all the stuff I have. You can either just get the mallet or just get the hammer, and you'll be fine. So you'll see what's happening here. The claw took away the marks from the punch. The flat chisel is taking away the marks from the claw. And basically I'm getting smoother and smoother with each tool. And I'm still doing that reset between each hit. And I'm also going to stop when I get close to the corner and come into the corner to avoid any misfortune around breaking off my corner. Okay? If you want to be really rigorous, you can take a straight edge and check your edges to make sure you're nice and straight. And if you find there's any places that are high points, you can go over them again and take them out. But as this is your first time ever doing this, maybe, I would avoid being too rigorous. And rather than thinking that you'll learn more by getting this one perfect, instead think that you'll get it perfect, you'll get the skill by repeating it multiple times. In fact, when I was learning, I spent an entire month of full days, 8-hour days, just doing flat surfaces. And I still didn't really master it. I got good enough at it to move on to something else, but I've continued to improve, and I would not say I had mastered it at that point. See, we don't really need the pencil line anymore because the pitching gave me a really easy to read physical line rather than just a color line. Okay, the blade of the chisel is at a slight angle, maybe 60 degrees. You could customize that if you like holding it at 90 degrees, that's no problem. It's a little bit more uncomfortable for my wrist, but I don't see why you couldn't. As I get close to the corner, I'm going to go in. And I'll finish my final edge here. They call this border the draft. And if you are involved in stonemasonry, or if you're learning this so that you can shape blocks for construction, that's great. In fact, I think that's one of the best entry ways to start carving sculpture. Because before you ever get involved in issues of composition or expression or anatomy or anything like that, you're really focusing in on your tool skills and learning how to cut stone precisely. Okay, now what I've done is give myself really good references. This is a reference, so that when I put my straight edge on top, it's really easy for me to see, like, that's high. I could get my thumb under there on both sides. So I know that that's how high that piece is, the place where it's like seesawing, fulcrum. I know that's how much stone I need to take away there. That's a lot of stone. That's definitely something that's like appropriate to punch. So I'm going to go back to the punch, and I'm going to give it another like once over, all over, and then check again with the straight edge. One of the biggest learning goals of this project is knowing what tool is the appropriate tool to use for breaking what amount of stone. So for that much stone, it's definitely punching, sorry. So here's another example of that thing I was saying about the angle changing during a sequence of blows. My first blow is kind of direct to get it to bite, and then I'm going to lower my angle a little bit to actually break the chips. Pay attention to that as you watch me. You don't really maintain the same angle in a sequence of blows. You get better results by changing it a little bit. Every time you break something, you create new vulnerability around it. So sometimes your marks are like scratches, and if you break, you can exploit the weakness that you create. Now you might find some people that would prefer to go in like furrows, like all the way across, and then move over a little bit and go all the way across. I used to do that, but I kind of abandoned that practice when I realized that you're missing out on knocking off some vulnerable places. It seems like it takes less energy to hunt for those peaks. Don't put your chisel at the base of a mountain, put it at the peak of a mountain, and you can break off pieces much more easily. But again, if you have a master available to you in person, definitely let them show you what they have to show you, and then you be the final. You make the final decision. What works for you? Different kinds of stone break different ways. Maybe what I'm doing would work for limestone and marble, but a totally different approach for granite. I might do a little sweep, get rid of some of this dust so I can see better. Now, in the beginning, I was using the punch just to break the biggest pieces I could possibly break, but now I'm aware I'm getting kind of close, so I'm using it a little bit more targeted, a little bit more cautiously. There's lots of ways to use all of these tools, some more aggressively and some more delicately. I'm getting close to, remember I talked about the airplane, I'm getting close to like getting ready to make our descent. I'm beginning to get ready to say, okay, I might be finished with the punch pretty soon. I might be finished with the airplane and ready to switch to a slower vehicle. Because as much as an airplane is fast and it gets us to our destination quickly, it's not precise. You can't land the airplane right at your destination, say at the gates of Disneyland. You have to land it at the airport, a safe distance away, and then take a slower vehicle to get to your final location. But it can be hard to tell. That's why we have the straight edge. It doesn't just tell us where the high point is, it tells us how high the high point is. if you're taking a trip and you get off the plane and switch to a slower vehicle, you know, it would be a big deal to get back on the plane if you realize you've gotten off too soon. But with the stone carving, it's not that big a deal. I could say, you know, I think that's pretty close. I'm going to switch to my claw. But then once I start to move in from the corner, I might say, oh, actually, there's still a lot of stuff in the middle. And it's no problem to pick up your punch again and do a little more punching. You don't have to say, I'm done with the punch, it's over. No more punching and be like fanatic about it. You can have second thoughts and go back to the punch. I do that all the time. It's very rare for a beginner to punch too much. Almost never happens. It's much more common for a beginner to stop punching and move to the claw and then regret, you know, say, oh, maybe I should have punched a little more. So if you are a beginner and you try this and you find you punch too deep, don't feel bad. Give yourself a pat on the back. Congratulate yourself. Realize you did something that hardly anybody does, and you erred on the side of recklessness rather than the side of caution. Most people are too cautious, too afraid of going too deep, including me. I had to kind of reteach myself after a while because I realized I was being too cautious. I'm not going for those big chips I was going for in the beginning. You can tell that. Maybe this is a place where I'm going to do this. Maybe this is a place where we can just speed it up, and I won't even say anything anymore. This, I don't think I have any more to really say about this, and it speeds up the video, so people, and I guess people, if they wanted to slow it down, they could and see it in real time. Okay, I'm feeling like it's time to get started with the clawing. I might not be ready for the clawing in the middle, but if you start to bring your corners in, it becomes apparent whether or not it was the right time to claw. And you can always go back to the punch if you begin to realize that you needed to do more punching. Again, I realize not everybody has the budget to get all the tools that I'll be using, but I'll point out that it's nice to have a wide claw or a flat chisel, because when you start to bring your corners towards the center, it's easy to tell whether or not you have a convex shape, because you can tell how many of the teeth are actually digging when you have something wide. It's always great to start from the corners, because when you're at a corner, you have one reference here and one reference here. If you're in the middle if you're here, you only have this reference. If you're out in here, you have no reference. So it's nice to start from a corner where you have two references and work your way in. Okay, I'm going to pick up the flat chisel and just remove my claw marks. That's how it goes. The claw refines the punch marks and the flat chisel refines the claw marks. Okay, the next corner I'll use a different kind of tool. I'll use these metal handled tools just for variety. I have a couple here. Very wide. It's even wider than the wooden handled one I was using. And I like to hit those with the nylon mallet. Now you want your tools to really bite. So a lot of times beginners are afraid to let their tools really bite because it's scary. It feels like you might go too low. But that's really not so much an issue of the angle. It's the issue of following that blow with another blow in the same spot, as I think I discussed that before. These are masonry chisels, as I said before. If you have a limited budget, I don't recommend you go out and buy a lot of masonry chisels because you might never use them again after this project. Let me try to find a metal flat chisel. Here's a metal flat chisel. Stonemasonry is great, but if you're doing this with the goal of making sculpture, you can just buy the smaller tools, and you can still do this project with smaller tools and with a smaller stone, and you still get the same. You still learn the same things from it. Okay, so now I got an extended corner here, an extended corner there, and it makes it easier for me to connect up the two corners because there's just a shorter distance. I think I prefer the wait, where'd you? Oh yeah. I think I prefer the wooden handle, but like I said, you don't have to get everything I'm showing you. I've seen people with magnets on their tabletop that keep the chisels in place. That might be a good next investment for me. Okay, here we go. I'm not doing a lot of checking, but I think as soon as I get these two connected up, I might do a check to see how straight I am. Okay, let's see. Got a little high point there, but I'm okay with that. So I think so I can stay facing you, I'm just going to turn this. Yeah, I think I'll punch a little bit more here. Like I said, it's fine to pick up a tool that you've sort of moved on from and go back to it. The whole goal here is all about what tools to use and how to use them for what amount of stuff that you're trying to remove. And the only way you learn that is by actually doing it and sometimes making a mistake and correcting. But like I said, it's rare for somebody to use too much punching. See, optimally, the deepest punch marks, these deepest punch marks here, optimally, those are right on this imaginary surface that I'm trying to shape. And even after my clawing and flat chiseling, there'd only be like a little bit of trace of this graphite that I'm coloring in those deepest. I don't want to punch like and leave 1/8 of an inch everywhere. I want my deepest punch marks to be right there, optimally. But that's, you know, rarely achieve that, but that's the goal. I'll show you another tool in a minute that I really love. Okay. I'm just connecting up this line with this big wide blade. Now I'll connect this with that. There's some people out there who know about this, who have done this, and they're cringing now because they're saying, that's not how I was taught to do it, that's not how I do it. That's totally fine. Send me your comments. I'm never trying to present I'm not trying to say this is the only way to do it. This is the way, it's even a blend between the way I was taught and things I kind of developed on my own. So I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to have you show me video of how you do it. That's one of the main missions of my organization, is to preserve the traditional knowledge and to pass it on, to record it, so that people in the future can benefit from it and build on it themselves. Okay, let me show you that cool tool that I was teasing you about. It's an axe. Here. This is a tool that my teacher Jose showed me, and he used it, and it was amazing to watch him use it. And like most of the things he did, as soon as I could, I started to incorporate his techniques and try to imitate him, because his results were so good and just the way he worked was so impressive. Let me just sweep this away. Yeah. So there's no punch blade on the axe, there's a claw and a flat chisel. I've seen other axes that have a punch end, but I don't have one. So I might do a little bit more punching the way I've been doing it before I begin to use that. Because when you start to creep in with your flat chiseling and your clawing, you begin to realize that there is a bit more punching to be done. So, not heavy, just kind of cautious. See, my angle is really changing. Even in a sequence of blows, I try to follow the where there's more stone in front of my point. I'll change directions. Big one here. Big one here. Okay, alright, let's do it. Let's get that axe going. There's lots of different ways to hold the axe, but I like to start with my thumbs on. I don't encircle it with my thumb, I keep my thumbs on the top. And you can change hands so that your cuts will be 90 degrees from each other. When I'm cutting this way, my cuts are like that, but when I switch, my cuts will be like that, so that if any of my cuts are deeper, it kind of evens things out to switch directions. You don't want to get too close to the edge. Now this looks like a violent weapon of war, but you can see the pieces that are breaking off are not that big. So it's kind of a gradual, easy to control way of working it, refining the texture. But if you haven't punched enough, it's not a great thing to do, because you're not gonna, it's it's a lot slower than punching. It's more for evening out and refining, just like the claw. But I keep going back to telling you how one thing you want to struggle with is when you're using the mallet to drive a claw, to not drive it down deeper. You want to stay on the top and always return to the top. I think I first realized that and learned that by using the axe, because with the axe you cannot hit it again. You know, it hits once and then you lift it up and hit it again, so it's impossible to hit it once and not pick it up and drive it in, you know, deeper. You can't do it. It's just not possible. And that enabled me to make the connection to, like, even when you're using a claw and hitting it with a mallet, the same principle can apply. You don't have to keep, you know, you can give it one nice hit and take a bite and then assess and move it slightly and continue hitting it, and then you're never going to end up well, you might, but it's harder to drive it in too deep. Okay, that's one of the things I learned from using the axe. All right, let's work on this corner here. to stop now, and I'm going to get tools that probably look a little bit more like the tools that you'll be using if you have a fixed budget and you have to get sculpture tools, and you're not going to end up getting these big stonemasonry tools. So you might be using a claw that's about this big. That's maybe 3/4 of an inch, 7/8 of an inch, and a chisel that's about 1/8 of an inch wide. You can still do this project. Maybe use a smaller stone, but even if you use a stone this big, it's going to take you a little bit longer than it's taking me. But still, you still get the same appreciation and the same learning about what tools to use for what task. Because if you don't have any guidance, a lot of times you're trying to make sense out of these tools and like looking at them like, okay, let me get a punch. Okay, what do I use? You might pick up the punch, because obviously it's not a finishing tool. It breaks pieces in a very, like, it doesn't leave behind a refined surface. So you might use that to get rid of the waste, but I think you'd probably feel like, I can't control this thing. It's going all crazy. Most beginners, they really gravitate towards the flat chisel because it feels easier to control. It leaves behind a clean surface, and that's always appealing. So that's why a lot of times when people don't have any guidance, including me, you pick up the flat chisel and say, these ones aren't for me. I'm going to do all my work with this. But like with my metaphor, this is like walking, okay? So if your goal is to transform a block into something like a head or a face or a pillowy sort of abstract form, whatever, if you really want to transform this block into a completely unrecognizable shape, you're going to get really tired from working with this flat chisel. Even if you like the way it works, even if it feels comfortable, and you'll get frustrated and probably won't be able to transform it as much as you'd like, and you'll compromise. So I don't want to see you do that. So that's why I'm really encouraging you to have discipline and use the punch, and then refine it with the claw and the flat chisel. Okay, I'm going to grab something bigger. I'm going to go back to the... You get the idea. And then I hear from people who don't like any tools that you have to hit with a mallet or a hammer. They really gravitate towards the tools that are abrasive tools. Tools like rasps and rifflers and files and things like that. Because with those tools, you have the ultimate amount of control. And it doesn't take long to master them. So that's another reason that they appeal to beginners, because right away you can feel very much in control. I'll grab a couple of those tools to show you what I mean. These tools have little teeth on the surface, and they work by rubbing the stone like this. And you can see that that's having an impact, but it's such a slow impact. It's such a slow transformation. And they're very traditional tools. I'm not rejecting them completely, especially not because they're new or high tech. They're very traditional. But it's best to hold off on those tools until you're 99% shaped and you're just cleaning something up or getting rid of some stone that was very delicate and hard to remove with percussion, with impact, and you want to do something in a very delicate way. If you use these to try to transform a block of stone, it's even slower than using the flat chisel. It's almost like, it's not walking, it's like crawling. So everything I said about the flat chisel and the reasons not to use that as a first primary tool for shaping, that applies double to the abrasives. And it also erases your tool marks, which I'm a big fan of tool marks. I love this texture. And even if you're a beginner and your texture isn't as organized and I don't know, consistent as mine, I still prefer your beginner's learning tool marks over a surface that's had them erased, rubbed out with an abrasive, because with limestone, the tool marks are what gives it energy. With marbles and alabasters and other kinds of stones that have translucence or color, using abrasives to polish helps bring out the color. It helps bring out that attractive quality. But with limestone, it really doesn't have that effect. It just makes the finished product resemble concrete. So, and without the tool marks, it looks dead and sterile. So please, be proud of your tool marks. Leave them there. Don't get rid of them. Okay. Let me just connect up these and then we can go for the middle. How's it going? Let's take a look. Oh, I still got a big, not big, but I still got a high point right in here, okay? What if I put it here and I found out I had like gone too deep? That's a bummer, you know, it's something to try to work on and get better at, but nothing to really, there's nothing you can do about it. So just try to learn from it and correct and figure out why it happened and try to do a little bit better on the next time. So, I'm going to try to get rid of that high point. I'll take my claw and just kind of stab at it. There's nothing worse than using a flat chisel over a surface that you've already flat chiseled. There's so much resistance. But if you prepare it, if you prep it, like just kind of doing a little, roughing it up a little, it goes through much better. Okay, that's a lot better. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot better. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to move on. Maybe I'll get back my axe and bring that back into the action. Now what's so great about the flat surface project is it takes a lot of stuff off your mind. It enables you to focus in on the tools because it's so easy to check and know if you need to go deeper or not. Later on, we'll do other projects where it's just up to your judgment to know whether to go deeper or not. There's no way of putting checking and saying, oh no, look, I got a high point here. If you're dealing with a flower or a face or anything sculptural, there's no outside standard that you can take and make that kind of judgment. That's what's great about this. And if you're feeling, I wanted to make a sculpture, I'm frustrated, I just wanted to do something beautiful. Try to appreciate the fact that this project, it might be boring, the final result might be boring, but it really enables you to focus on how to use these tools with accuracy, so that later on when you want to take away a certain amount of stone, you have the skills to do it. And you don't have to be afraid that you might take away too much, because you'll be able to take away just the amount of stone that you want. Okay? All right. I hope that, like me, you will find this to be a really hard thing to do, and you will come to love it, because the more you do it, the more you see yourself improving at it, the more you find that it's getting easier for you, the more you find that you're getting better results. And for me anyway, that's one of the best things that I've discovered in life, is to go back to something that was really hard and work at it and discover ways of doing it differently that make your results better, that make it make it easier, rather than buying a device that does it for you. I think the fun for me comes from working hard and practicing and seeing my skills increase. Now I know there's going to be some high points left when I finish this, but that's good, because it's going to enable me to show you one last tool that I really like, that my students really like. So let's get to that. All right. No, I'm pretty sure I didn't go too deep anywhere. In fact, I think there's a lot of places where I'm still got more stone to take away, which is great because I want to show you one more thing. First, I'll mark a little spot where there's a high point, although I think everything is a high point. Yeah, so here's a big high point. The next tool I want to show you is called the bush hammer. And if you look at the punch, it's got like one pyramid point. If you look at the bush hammer, it's got 16 pyramid points, and they're all arranged so they're all on a surface. They have different. You can remove these heads and put in ones with different numbers of points. The more points, the less aggressive it is. But I have a lot of stuff to take away right here, so I'm going to use an aggressive 16-point surface. And look at the pieces that break. I mean, they're small. They're just like grit. So it's not working. It's very low stress because I don't feel like with one hit or two hits or even like 30 seconds or 90 seconds of hitting, it would be possible to go too deep. Especially if you avoid like hitting with like the corner or like an edge. Try to hit it so the whole face, all the points come down at once. Again, I put my thumbs on top. I don't squeeze it completely. It just feels better to me to do it that way. So this is how you read a straight edge. You can't read it from up here. You got to put your head down and look, and I see light under here, and I see light under here, and it's touching here. So I know I still got to get rid of more stone here because my goal is for it to be no light, there's no way of showing you because I haven't gotten a flat surface anywhere on this stone. But you want this entire metal surface to be in contact with the stone, so there's no light coming through anywhere. That's when you know you've achieved the goal. So I have more work to do. I'm going to do a little bit more bush hammering. Maybe I'll flip it now and use the more gentle side. Now I prefer to have my my surface be all one consistent texture, so I think I'll go over it with the flat chisel, and hopefully then I'll have what I want. All right, let's see what we've got. That's very close. I feel like I have a high point. I have a high point here. It's good in the middle, and I have a high point here. So I think I'm going to leave you at this point though, because you're having the realization and the insight that your teacher is not perfect either. You're going to struggle. We'll struggle together. And if I took more time, I could keep hunting those high points and keep bringing them down. But I know I hope I've achieved my goal in sharing something important with you and helping you get off to a good start with your stone carving skills. So this is Chris Pellettieri signing off. I hope you will subscribe to the channel, and I hope you'll benefit from it and stay with me as we progress to more and more challenging and interesting projects to come. So thanks for watching. Bye.